Big government's awful. We just saw how it wastes billions on failing energy schemes, how it sometimes takes people's land by force and turns their property into abandoned lots. Well, I don't like my big government, but what choice do I have? I like America. I don't want to leave. But what if there were a way to have more competition among governments within America? We know competition forces people to become more efficient, to get rid of stupid old rules and roadblocks, because customers leave if you don't. So, what if we turned over some unused land in America to create areas with fewer rules, simpler legal systems, small government that would give you another option? You could move to one of those places. Well, Michael Strong and Maguette Wade want to create thousands of new governments. They've started a new group called the Free Cities Project. What's that about?
Well, as you say, competition makes everything better. Silicon Valley is great because thousands of young entrepreneurs create new companies. We want to encourage thousands of people around the world to create new governments that have different kinds of rules, each competing for customers, so we have the best education, the best healthcare, and the most peace and prosperity you can possibly imagine by means of competition.
So, like where? You'd have to get the state government approval to let you have some empty land.
No, that is important. So a couple of things. One is there are already Native American reservations in the U.S. We're encouraging Native American reservations to take hold of their responsibility to be sovereign, and as they become sovereign, they can be more free. Also in places like Honduras and Senegal, we're encouraging, Honduras already has something like this. In Senegal, we're encouraging a movement towards an autonomous city-state that would allow for peace and prosperity in countries like Senegal and Honduras where they're poor.
And I should say, you guys are a married couple, and Maguette, you're from Senegal, where you saw firsthand how stupid rules stopped prosperity.
Right now, we have thousands of young people at the bottom of the ocean, dead. Why? Because they put themselves into some fisherman's boat trying to make it to Europe to get a job. Not to get the cute blondie, but to get a job. So, dead. And what do we need to keep them home? We need jobs. Who create jobs? Entrepreneurs. But for entrepreneurs to be incentivized into coming and creating jobs somewhere, you better make it right for them to come in and do such a thing.
And that's not the case in Senegal?
Absolutely
you taught me
not.
that there was a government monopoly on cement, but they recently allowed a competitor in. Prices fell by a third.
Exactly. We were colonized by France at some point. And, for example, in labor laws, why is it not so incentivizing for me right now to start a company in Senegal? For example, I'm married to my employees, good or bad. Who here can imagine such a thing? You cannot fire an employee.
The welfare system's huge. France says you can't fire an employee, so Senegal said that must be a good rule.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in terms of also being able to set up a company, we are much better now in terms of the registrations.
You started a beverage company in Senegal. It's very tough.
Yes, it was an ordeal. It was an ordeal. And I did it because I'm from Senegal and I have an interest in trying to improve things. But for an American company or anyone who has no incentive of going through what I went through, why would they put themselves through such a thing?
What people don't realize is that the developing world is massively overregulated. If we had simply as much economic freedom as Denmark, in countries around the world, there would be almost no poverty and almost no war.
What, there'd be prosperity in Africa if they had fewer rules?
Big time. Africa is the most regulated region, most regulated continent on Earth.
It is very counterintuitive, and the fact that we have so many rules, who does it benefit the most? Multinationals. That people are so...
Because they're smart and they have
Absolutely.
a way to get around the rules.
And crony capitalists.
In the Congo, it requires 18 documents to import anything.
Which means that the only people that actually import things are people that pay bribes. You know, people talk about corruption. Corruption in Africa is a symptom of massive overregulation.
Right.
People have to pay off people if you can't do it legally.
So are there any of these free cities in the world?
Well, Hong Kong and Singapore are the best examples, and they are the fastest growing entities for the last 50 years. Hong Kong and Singapore were both roughly the same level of development as parts of Africa in 1960. Now they're among the wealthiest places on Earth.
And Dubai wanted to create a financial sector, but they had Sharia law, so they couldn't.
Dubai was brilliant. They are the first clear example of using a different legal system. They looked around the world. They saw that Hong Kong, Singapore, New York, Chicago, Sydney, London all ran British common law. British common law is much better for commerce than is French common law or Sharia law. So they took 110 acres of Dubai soil, put British common law with a British judge in charge, and they went from an empty piece of soil to the 16th most powerful financial center in the world in 8 years. 8 years, boom, just like that.
And speaking of this contrast, you suggested we show this picture at night from the sky of North and South Korea. And this illustrates what?
That prosperity is dependent on rules.
Well, explain what we're looking at here.
Sure. South Korea has plenty of light, plenty of development. South Korea
and on the top you see China with some development. In the middle is North Korea, no light.
Exactly. This shows that rules determine prosperity. Same culture, different rules.
So some libertarians say the answer to this is seasteading. The governments will never go along within the United States, so we're going to go out in the ocean.
The seasteading is an interesting innovation, and there are various seasteading. Seasteads way at sea are pretty radical and difficult technologically. You could have seasteads that are inland that provide more autonomy that's on land. You can imagine a country like Mexico allowing significantly more freedom just offshore than onshore. Even cruise ships are used in some ways as opportunities to do things that might otherwise not be possible. So seasteading is another way to create freedom and prosperity and to escape abusive rules that exist around the world.
A free city within America would be a lot cheaper than building a platform in the ocean.
We hope the Native American tribes take off and become islands of freedom. 564 islands of freedom across the U.S.
Thank you, Michael Strong and Miguette Wade. Coming up, my take on what it would be like if we libertarians were in charge.